Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Don't IEP Alone. I'm Lisa Lightner. Today, I'm going to talk about a couple of things in a few minutes, but I want to point out to you that while I'm talking today, I have a visual in front of me, so you may want to go to the website or to my YouTube channel at some point and take a look at what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to talk about it as if it's not there, but it's a flowchart that I created a few years ago, and I want to go over it because I'm getting a lot of questions about this year. So before I get started on that, I wanted to remind you that it is, the end of April, May, beginning of May, by all accounts. So please talk to your IEP team if you haven't already. Talk to them about ESY. If you have no clue about what's going on with your child's ESY program, if you don't know if they're getting into it, if it's not FAPE for them, whatever that kind of looks like, you want to make sure that you get that cleared up because, like I said, it's May, and I know, honestly, some schools in the country are done in 2 or 3 weeks. So you want to make sure that you're on board for that. I also have a lot of information on my website, including the free webinars that I've done on ESY extended school year. Just go to adayinourshoes.com, search for ESY or extended school year, and they will come up. The other thing is that with summer coming up, and I know that this isn't definition of summer fun, mine included, but I do have my online training. It's pre-recorded, so you can access it at any time. And I encourage you to go to adayinourshoes.org and look at the options available because, you may want to do that this summer. The core content as far as my advocacy strategy and really understanding IEPs, and I could read testimonial after testimonial to you, that can be done in about a weekend. Now, again, if it's sunny and 80 degrees out and you have your toes in the sand, I don't necessarily think that talking about IEPs is what you want to do, but it can be done in a weekend, and you just never know. If you live in a part of the country where you do get stuck inside because of the extreme heat, or if we end up stuck inside for a week because it's raining, bad weather, you may just be like, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to knock out that training. And you don't have to do the whole thing. The whole thing is $297. You don't have to do that. You can do, there's a if you're just worried about transition, there is a 6-part transition workshop series, and that's fantastic. And there are guest speakers in that. If transition is your concern, then you definitely want to take a look at that. That one's only $49, and you can do that at your own pace. Each one is a half hour to 45 minutes. So you're talking about 6 hours of your time over a whole summer, and you could really, really be ready for getting your child a solid transition plan next year, or editing or upgrading the one that you have. So anyway, take a look at that. Again, it's adayinourshoes.org. So today I'm talking about the IEP process, and there really is a well-defined process within IDEA of how things are expected to progress. And the comments that I'm getting from parents at this time of year, there's a lot of comments and questions that I'm getting from parents this time of year. A lot of them have to do with ESY, but a lot of them, because it is the end of the school year, most of us only have a few weeks left. The questions that I get are of the type of how long do they have to do this and how long do they have to do that? Because there's a certain sense of urgency because we're at the end of the year and parents want these things to happen right before Memorial Day, ideally, because pretty much all school ends at that point. So the first thing I want to say is this: as far as timelines, IDEA leaves a lot of stuff open. When parents really engage in the IEP process and understand what's going on and what it says, and when they know where to look in IDEA for that solid information, you'd actually be pretty surprised that IDEA does not define a whole lot of stuff, right? So if you're looking for, and I get it, right? Parents feel frustrated, they feel a lot of things. And so you want to have something to point to, right? You want to open up IDEA and have something to point to and say, hey, look, it says right here that you have to do this. But what you're going to find, again, is that IDEA does not define a whole lot of things, and timelines and definites are some of those things. Some states define these things a lot more. Some do not. The thing is that when it comes, so IDEA is obviously the federal statute that governs special education and IEPs. But one of the main pillars of our government here in America is that, we leave it up to the states, right? Like leave it up to the states. That is why, IDEA says, okay, you have to do this, but they leave it up to the states to implement. And I don't see that changing anytime soon because of many reasons. We talked about this. If you are in my online training, you know that we had a Senate Disability Policy Director as a guest speaker a few years ago. And, he confirmed that this isn't going to change anytime soon because we actually do have laws in place from the 1950s that state that the U.S. federal government will never get that specific as far as defining public education in this country. So it is what it is, in other words, and I'm not about kind of fighting battles that I don't think I can win and spinning my wheels and wasting time on that. And it's the focus on what you can control aspect. So states can do more than what IDEA calls for. They cannot do less. So keep that in mind. So if IDEA does define something, so for example, and I'm going to get in, like for the initial evaluation of a child, the initial evaluation, right? When your child is first going through evaluations to determine if they're eligible for an IEP. IDEA, that is one of the few timelines that they define, and they say 60 days. Some states have actually lowered that, and they say 30 or 45 days. Now, so evaluating a child within 30 to 45 days is more in favor for the child than 60. Right? So they can do that. What they can't do is a state can't say, no, we're going to give people 90 days. Or we're going to give the schools 180 days, right? Like they can't do that. They can do more than what IDEA calls for, but they cannot do less. So if you are looking for specific timelines, I would encourage you to go to your state Department of Education website and poke around on there. Every state also has a parent training center. That information should readily be available on there. The other thing is this. And this is my personal philosophy and strategy for advocating after doing this for almost 15 years, is that I find when parents don't know what to focus on, right, when they're kind of overwhelmed, just kind of out there scrambling and they're frustrated and they want results and they know their child is struggling, but they can't figure out why or what. When parents don't know what to focus on, they focus on these little timeline things. So let me give you an example. In some states, they have these rules, they're laws, they're their special education laws, let's be clear, that a school, if you request an IEP meeting, for example, they have to respond to you within 5 to 10 days, or they have to at least schedule it within 5 to 10 days. Okay. And I don't have the exact statutes in front of me, so I don't want to, please don't say, well, what state? Again, go look that up for your state. You need to engage in the process. I'm not people's personal Google, and I don't know every law for all 50 states. So, but I do know that some of the states say if a parent requests an IEP meeting, you have to at least get it on the calendar scheduled within 5 to 10 days. So, or after an IEP meeting, they have to get you the final copy of the IEP within 5 days, 10 days, whatever it is. So parents will email me and they'll be like, it's been 5 days and they didn't get it to me. What do I do? And what do I do? Again, my personal philosophy is this. It's good information to have. I would document it. I would email them. So if, for example, they missed that 5-day deadline, I would wait till maybe day 6 or 7 and I would email them and say, hey, I just want to make sure I didn't miss something or didn't receive an email that you sent out. Again, give them the benefit of maybe not even giving them the benefit of the doubt, but give them a way to save face or give them an out, right? Like maybe you didn't receive an email, who knows? But you can say, hey, we had our IEP meeting on April 15th. I was expecting that I would receive the final IEP by April 20th. Here we are, it's April 22nd, and I still have not received it. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't sent out and it didn't arrive or something, something like that. And again, you have this documented, you have the data, you have the documentation, but see where it goes from there, right? And if you don't get it, like if this drags on for another week and another week and another week, then yeah, you want to look into filing a state compliance complaint. But when what sometimes happens is parents will say, okay, I didn't get it in 5 days. And the school might even say, and they might even be wrong, right? And they might say something like, well, it's 5 business days. It's not 5 calendar days. And let's say there was a weekend in there, right? Or even a holiday weekend, right? A Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And they go, well, it's not 5 calendar days. It's 5 business days. So we still have time. And then the parent writes to me and they go, so is it business days or is it calendar days? And which is it? So please don't put your focus on trying to catch schools in this minuscule bullshit detail that at the end of it all, it really doesn't matter. It can be indicative of a much larger problem. And if your school district is missing deadlines and timelines all over the place, you may want to pursue, a large collective OCR complaint or something like that. But parents expect, they want me to come up with the laws so that they can march into the school and have this, see? It doesn't say business days, it says calendar days, and they hope that it's going to be this big gotcha. But then what happens is that you have now changed the focus of your discussions from your child's IEP to whether or not the school district is following timelines. And now nobody's even talking about the IEP. What matters is the IEP. So again, it's good to document it. I would keep it. You may never, again, 6 months down the road, you may find yourself sitting in an attorney's office talking about due process, in which case emails like this are going to be beneficial, and it's going to be part of a larger discussion where you say, well, the school didn't do this, and the school didn't do this, and the school didn't do this. So it's good information to have. Again, I would prompt them and let them know that you are expecting this document, but I wouldn't make it the focus of my concern. Well, it says calendar days. It doesn't say business days or vice versa, right? Because you don't want to change the focus of the discussion. And I get it, right? When parents are frustrated and there are so many gray areas of the IEP process, the things like what's reasonable and what's appropriate and what's meaningful progress and all these words like appropriate and meaningful that aren't black and white, that are subjective more than objective. I understand what it's like to get a black and white issue, right? It's 5, it's right there on the state website. It says 5 calendar days. There is no disagreeing with that. I get that's a right or wrong issue. But again, I've just seen too many parents get hyper-focused on that because it is an area where they feel like they're going to get some resolution. And again, in the big picture of things, are your child's outcomes going to be significantly altered if the school takes 5 business days rather than 5 calendar days to get you that IEP? I don't tend to think so. So keep your focus on your child. Boy, am I rambling today. Maybe I had too much coffee. Okay, so let's get to this IEP process flowchart and the timelines. And as you can see, I tried to make it color-coded for those of you who are just listening and not watching. It is pink and blue and pretty, but it takes you through what to expect and what to do if your child is struggling and what the process is. So, does your child already, if your child is struggling, do they already have an IEP? Yes or no? And you take it from there as far as written requests for IEP evaluations. And then you have so you did the written request for IEP evaluations, and did the school say yes or no? And it gives you steps from there, because if it's a no, that response needs to be on a PWN. If they say yes, again, if it's the initial evaluation, they should take 60 days. A lot of parents ask me what the timeline is for re-evaluations. There is no timeline for re-evaluations. And the reason is this: if your child is getting re-evaluations it is assumed that, right, they already have an IEP, so it's a reevaluation. You already have your annual IEP meeting date. So if this is a triennial evaluation, it is assumed that those evaluations will take place prior to that year's meeting. So now, whether or not the school starts those triennial evaluations like 60 days before the meeting, 90 days before the meeting, 5 days before the meeting, right? If they can get the evaluation done and the report written up in that amount of time, they can do that. But the assumption is there that it will be done before that meeting date. So that's why there is no timeline for re-evaluations. Okay. So I encourage you to please look at this flow chart on my website. I think if you just search on my website, adayinourshoes.com for IEP timelines or IEP process flowchart timeline, something like that, it's on there and it will explain it to you. But again, I don't get too caught up in timelines this time of year. One of the advocates who I know, who I admire more than just about any of the other advocates I know, Michelle, she is very insightful and she's very smart. I really like her, and I don't think she's even working in the field anymore, which is a bummer for kids. But anyway, she said to me, she had a lot of problems over the years, and I think that's why she left the field. And I don't blame her. She had a lot of struggles with her daughter over the years. But she even said when she was first starting out, she said, when I didn't know what to focus on, I focused on small details that really just didn't matter in the big picture, right? And that, I just can't even say it enough, because once she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. I have seen so many parents do that. And listen, truth bomb here, I did it myself. And now this goes back to when Kevin was a baby, but he was getting 1 hour a week of OT, and I wanted him to get 2. And I think I've put this on my site, but I wanted him to get 2 hours because he was working on fine motor and things like that. But I thought that he could use more time for sensory. And I mean, my child has a lot of needs, and that was even evident as a baby. So I wanted him to get twice the OT time, 2 hours a week. I suppose that maybe in my head, I maybe thought that his progress would double. I don't know what I thought then. It was a weird time for sure. So I'm fighting with early intervention. And again, he was only 1 or 2 at the time. And I'm fighting with them about this 2 hours of OT. And they kept telling me, which I know now is not true, but they kept telling me, like, that's not our model. We don't do that way. And he's getting more services than any other kid in the county. Which, if we do that, he's going to be having more services than any other child in the county, which I don't believe. But anyway, it was this kind of concrete black and white issue. I wanted 1 hour. I had 1 hour a week of OT. I wanted 2, right? That was really tangible. That was a tangible item for me. Either I'm going to get those 2 hours, or I'm not going to get, I'm going to get 1. And I did get it. And not surprisingly, yes, he made progress, but I don't think his progress doubled. But looking back, it was like, I didn't know what else to focus on. I knew that he could be making more progress. I knew that what he was getting was not sufficient, but I didn't know, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what else to do. So again, I had this tangible item of 1 hour versus 2 hours, and that was very measurable. Once I took a step back, went to a lot of workshops, went to some IEP advocacy training, and then I kind of saw the big picture of him and the progress and being accurately described. And again, this is all stuff I teach in my training. But once I saw that, it was a matter of oh, okay, he needs a teacher for the visually impaired. Even though he can see, he is visually impaired because of the CVI, and he needed those issues. He had orientation and mobility, O&M. He had O&M for a while, and he needed O&M. And once we kind of looked at this from a whole child kind of thing, rather than, well, let me just get another hour of OT, what do you know? He started to make progress and progress at a much better rate. So please focus on the big picture. Please try to stay away from hyper-focusing on timelines and deadlines. But nevertheless, there is a defined IEP process to follow. So look for that flowchart on my site, take a look, and then you will know what to expect. And look at your state website. Always look at your state website. You should know where to find things on there when you need them. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys next week.